Welcome to my channel. My name is Tolu. I'm a Christian dating coach and I specialize in showing single Christian women how to go from single to married in a year. And I do this by getting you into the right relationship in 90 days, okay? So today I wanted to talk to you about telling men what you want, because in the course of going over your wife in waiting applications. By the way, if you want to work with me in wife in waiting, which is my group coaching program, to get into the right relationship in 90 days in 2025, make sure you click the link in my bio and first tab to apply for the wife in waiting program. We will close applications on Sunday, as at the time of this live training. Okay, so applications will close on Sunday. You won't be able to join Wife in Waiting if you do not apply before then. If you're the right fit, we'll hop on a call together. We'll have a chat to see how I can best support you through Wife in Waiting. Awesome. So let's talk about telling men what you want in a relationship. Let me know where you guys are tuning in from by dropping it in the comments. So the usual problem I see here is not that you don't know what you want. I've spoken to a number of you. We just finished the Find Your Husband in 90 Days workshop, which was a huge success. I was so excited to meet you guys in person and to share with you online through the workshop how to find your husband in 90 days. And this is what I show you how to do in the Wife in Waiting program, by making sure you are dating men that you can commit to in 90 days and get married to within a 12-month timeline. I've seen that you know what you want, but the issue that I usually see is you don't know how to express it, you don't know how to communicate it, and you struggle with how to express exactly what it means for you to have desires from men that you are getting to know. So here's a couple of things I want to start with. For you to tell men what you want, there has to be a reason behind what you're asking for. So if it's asking for a date, what's the reason behind it? Is it because you've been talking for, a couple of days? Because usually a man should ask you for a date within the first week or so of communication. Is that why you're asking for a date? Is it that you're asking for a relationship because you've been talking for months and nothing has come forward? Or do you find yourself in the situation where you're already in a relationship, but you're asking for more commitment? You're asking to talk about the future. You're asking to talk about marriage. You're asking to talk about getting engaged. I want you to first notice why you're asking, because that's going to show you what the problem is. Okay, if you have a question with the man or men that you're talking to, that usually means there's a problem. So if you find in any of these scenarios I mentioned that you're asking for a date, that means there's a problem with him showing you he desires to take you on a date. If you're asking for a relationship, it means that you feel like there isn't any commitment on his end to show you that he actually desires a relationship. If you're asking for engagement, if you're trying to talk about the future, it means that you're talking to somebody that hasn't shown you confidently and consistently that they see you as somebody they want to commit to long term. So your questions are actually a very good indication of how that man feels about you. Because if he had shown you that he wanted to commit, you wouldn't have the question around commitment. Even if you're not committed yet, it would be fairly obvious to you that he wants to commit. If you didn't have questions around seeing each other in person, going on dates, you wouldn't naturally have that desire to ask the question. And the reason I'm breaking this down is so that you have the confidence to make the request that you're making when you are communicating with men and when you're expressing your desires. Part of the work I do with clients inside the Wife in Waiting program is to show them exactly how to do this, how to communicate their needs and their wants effectively to men that they're talking to, and how to anchor their conversations in such a way where they are not open to be gaslit, manipulated, or found themselves distracted in the course of conversation. And let me know in the comments if this is familiar. Just drop a yes. If you've ever tried discussing with a man about going on dates, a relationship, marriage, and somehow the conversation becomes entirely different as to why you're not giving him enough space, why you're putting pressure on him, why you can't be satisfied with all the things he's done with you so far. Let me know by just dropping yes in the comments, because usually this is an indication that the man you're talking to doesn't want to do what you want. So what I like to do with my clients inside the Wife in Waiting program is to give them, I call it a dating safety net. In fact, I did it with a recent client that has just joined Wife in Waiting and I'm super excited to work with. And I helped her with a dating safety net because I wanted her to feel safe having these conversations with the gentleman that she's talking to. it's important that you're able to create safety for yourself when you're telling men what you want, because you being in that situation means that you do not feel safe with that person. So you have to give yourself that safety so that you don't abort mission, so to speak, at the slight sense of at the slight instance of him showing you that he's at the slight instance of confrontation, you don't abort mission. A lot of men usually will want you to abort mission. So the first thing they will do, I see a lot of yes in the comments, so I'm glad that this is familiar to you, and that means this will be helpful. A lot of men will want you to abort mission when they don't want to do what you want. So what I like to do with my clients inside the Wife in Waiting program is make sure that they have a safety net that isn't dependent on that man's actions. What I mean by a safety net is knowing exactly what you want out of that conversation, knowing why that conversation is important to you, being able to articulate yourself clearly and confidently so that regardless of what he says, how he says it, what he does as a result of what you are saying, you are still maintaining the same stance. A lot of you, part of the reason why you're not able to express what you want is because in any of the scenarios I just mentioned, you are not able to consistently ask for what you want. You find yourself struggling to ask for a relationship because you feel like you've been having that conversation day in, day out. Basically, you find yourself struggling to ask to go on dates because you feel like it's something that you've asked for repeatedly. You find yourself struggling to ask for what are the plans for the future because you find that you've been talking to this man and he keeps telling you to wait, give him more time, he needs more space, and so you talk yourself out of it. The work I do with clients inside Wife in Waiting is making sure that you don't do that so that you don't waste time. This is how I'm able to get my clients out of situationships, broken down relationships within a 2-week timeline that they've been struggling with for, say, 6 months. Because when you have the confidence and the conviction and you have the very clear understanding as to why what you're asking for is necessary and is required, it's very difficult for a man to manipulate the situation, gaslight you, or avoid that kind of conversation. And let me know if this is helpful. Just tap the hearts. Another reason why I like, as women, for you to be able to tell men what you want in a relationship is because you need to give him the opportunity to pursue. So it's natural for men to want to pursue you if they are interested in you. But if you're not expressing any desires, you're making it very simple, very easy, you're constantly making yourself available, you're doing whatever he wants, you're not posing any opportunity for him to improve in how he can show up for you, they will get bored. For lack of a better way of saying it, they will get bored because it's in a man's natural instinct to want to pursue and to want to provide. If you're talking to men that don't want to do any of the above, then you're not talking to a man. You're probably talking to an emotionally unavailable child, for lack of a better way of putting it, or a boy. If we're going to categorize these men in different aspects, 2 of the general categories I use, just so you understand my context, is you're dealing with a boy in a man's body, or you're dealing with a man that is underdeveloped emotionally. Those are not the men that you want to be dealing with. So it's very important for you to actually be in a position where you can express what you want. And I was actually talking to a client the other day about this, and we worked through, and I'll tell you in a second why I'm mentioning this. We worked through her concerns around asking questions from men, and she had expressed to me that, what if it sounds like I'm chasing? And I want to clarify, telling men what you want is not you chasing him or begging or nagging for his attention. It is you actually confidently and clearly letting him know, this is how you pursue me. Okay, this is what I need for you to do for me to know that you are genuinely interested in me. So when you are able to do this, it completely changes the atmosphere around how that man perceives you and how he pursues you and how he wants to provide for you. You cannot create that same environment if you constantly keep doubting what you ask for is available to you, and you're constantly questioning if you're in a position to ask for what naturally should be part of the process of getting to know somebody for a relationship that would eventually lead to marriage. And this leads to my third point. A lot of you are dating men that you cannot marry, which ultimately is the reason why you're having this problem. You're dating men that do not see a future with you, that definitely do not want to commit to you on a long-term basis, and you need to be able to express yourself so you can see this faster. So what I like to do with my clients inside the Wife in Waiting program is, part of the program consists of coaching calls. So I like to role play, I like to create scenarios for my clients clients to be able to get comfortable around navigating conversations with men that otherwise would make them uncomfortable. So when you become a wife in waiting client, you have access to that aspect of the program as well, so that we can role play and practice exactly how you can confidently, comfortably, and consistently express yourself to men in a way that doesn't make you feel unheard, unseen, or taken advantage of. Because it's very important that when you're telling them what you want in a relationship, you are none of the above. You are not unheard, you're not unseen, and you're not uncomfortable. So when you are telling a guy that, okay, this is what I need from you, this is what I want from you, context is also very important. You can't be asking somebody that you just started seeing, and this is why, part of the Wife in Waiting program is our dating curriculum that breaks down the different stages of dating so that my clients are very clear on what they should be experiencing at each stage. If you find that you're having expectations from men and expectations in a relationship, it usually means you're not having the experience that you want. So what I like to do with clients in Wife in Waiting is make sure that they know at each stage, whether they're single, talking to men, in a relationship, going on dates, they are clear what their experience should be at each stage so that they don't have to rely on expectations. Because if you come at men asking for expectations, you're usually going to get disappointed, because expectations usually means there's a lack of enough experience there. In other words, you haven't experienced going on a date with him. That's why you're expecting it. You haven't experienced him buying you gifts. That's why you're expecting it. You haven't experienced him showing up for you in an emotionally healthy way. That's why you're expecting it. Usually, those are also signs that you're talking to the wrong men. So when you come into the Wife in Waiting program and we have our first initial call, I like to create what I call a map or a plan, for lack of a better way of putting it, as to how we're going to tackle any areas that you are currently experiencing that are making it difficult for you to enter the right relationship. One of the things that is causing this is your inability to confidently, clearly, consistently express yourself to show a man the experience you want. And it's very important that you do that for him to know how to pursue you, or for you to know if he doesn't want to pursue you. Because if he's interested, he will do it. If he's not interested, he will delay, he will deny, he will distract. And a lot of you, and let me know if this is common in the comments, a lot of you may have experienced men delaying the conversation. They will tell you things like, this is not the right time. They will gaslight you. They will turn it into a confrontation. They will avoid the conversation. They may have denied it, like, no, I didn't do that. What are you saying? They will start bringing out evidence that isn't evidence. What I mean by that is you're asking him for a date, and he's telling you, why are you saying that to me? We spend so much time on the phone. I've invited you over to my place. I see you all the time when we do video chats. He will turn the situation around. That's him denying it. Or he will completely distract. He will completely talk about something else. He will start talking about how his work is putting him under a lot of pressure. He just relocated. He doesn't have time to take you out. He works crazy hours. Those are things that will come out of a man's mouth that doesn't want to pursue you, which is exactly why I like to create the safety for my clients to have these conversations as soon as possible, so that you can remove any man that is literally a counterfeit. If we're getting spiritual here, you can remove any man that is literally a counterfeit out of the picture as soon as possible. Because the thing with counterfeits is they are never sent by God, okay? They're always sent by the enemy. If we're getting spiritual, the thing with counterfeits is God never sent them to you. And yes, there are certain instances where you meet men that you're meant to go on dates with, but God never said that you should get in a relationship with him, and that was supposed to be for a defined period of time. But a lot of you are dating outside the timeline that has been assigned to you. Okay, I wasn't expecting to go here, but I suppose that's where the Lord wants me to go, because that's the conversation we're having apparently. So what I mean by that is there's a specific timeline that has been assigned to you to be single, to be going on dates, to be in a relationship, to get engaged, and to get married. But a lot of you are not aligned with your assigned timeline. You are dating out of that timeline. And usually this happens when you are dating counterfeits. You're dating men that are sent to delay you, distract you, deny you of what God actually wants to give you. So what I like to do with Wife in Waiting clients, which is why part of the Wife in Waiting process is knowing how to pray and knowing how to discern with the help of the Holy Spirit. Because any man that doesn't qualify literally should not be in your life longer than a few weeks maximum. And when I say qualify, I mean qualify for marriage to you specifically, not for marriage in general, because it doesn't matter if he's husband material, if he's not your husband. it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. So the sooner you can get to that conclusion and confidently be able to say, this is somebody that I could potentially marry, or this is somebody that somebody else should marry, or this is somebody that isn't even qualified for marriage at all, the better it is for you. So when I'm working with my clients in wife and waiting program, the assignments for my job, basically my assignment, is to make sure that any man that you're entertaining is in alignment to be in a relationship with you in 90 days. I do not have a single sister that has been, and we call ourselves sisters in wife in waiting. So they are my clients, but we're basically sisters. We all refer to ourselves as sisters. I don't have a single sister in the wife in waiting program that is entertaining a man that she isn't in a relationship with within a 90-day timeline. Okay? It's not possible, because if you are called to marriage and if you have a very clear conviction around what your calling looks like, which I provide for you inside the wife and waiting program. So regardless of if you have it now or not, it's fine. It's inside the curriculum in wife and waiting. You're covered. You'll know exactly what you need to do. Even if you haven't been on a date in years, or you haven't spoken to a man in months, or you're currently in a situationship, all of that is covered in the wife and waiting program, so you don't have to worry about it. But if you find yourself in that particular situation, it's because you're probably not dating according to your assigned timeline. And this looks different for different women, but there's no reason why you can't go from single to married within a 12-month timeline. In my experience working with clients over the years, taking them from singleness, dating trauma, situationships to marriage, it always takes 12 months within meeting a guy for them to get into a relationship and get married. So this is purely based on what I have done with clients in the past. It's not an opinion, it's literally a fact. So what I want you to ask yourself is, if you're in a position where you're currently and consistently questioning men, asking questions around, why won't you take me on a date? Why don't you want to talk about the future? Why isn't this relationship moving forward? Why are you still talking to your ex? Why can't you respect my boundaries? Why don't you want to show me that you care about me? Then you're probably not talking to your husband. Okay, it's highly likely. In fact, I'll confidently say 98% of the time that isn't the right man for you. And I'm just giving the 2% based on human error, but I strongly believe that isn't your person. So it's important for you to ask yourself, what kind of questions are you asking, and why are you asking those questions? Because there are certain questions that should naturally come up when you are dating. For example, you should naturally want to talk about, when are we meeting your parents? You both should naturally want to talk about what's the future plan for both of us. When do we want to settle down? Those are natural questions that should be coming up. But if you're not seeing those questions, it usually means that that's the wrong fruit. Okay, so in other words, you're in the wrong space. You're talking to the wrong person. That's why you're seeing the wrong questions. Does all of that align with your experience? Just drop a yes in the comments. If you have any questions for me, drop it in the question box. Let me see your questions. But yes, I really just want you to reevaluate, because we're at the time of this training, we're at the end of 2024, we're entering 2025. And what I always say is, the same thing will always produce the same result. So if you've constantly been finding yourself in situations with different men, asking the same questions that are not productive, why aren't you taking me on a date? Why don't you want to come here? Why don't you want to talk about the future, for example? The problem is the way you're dating. That's your issue. Which is why, inside the wife and waiting program, there's a curriculum that's already been set up and set aside for you to work through, that contains tasks to change the way you're dating. It's a very intentional curriculum that I prescribe to every single client inside my program, to be able to make sure that they are actually dating the right way, so that when they do meet men, which they do inside the course of the wife and waiting program, they are able to proceed in the correct format. Right? When I say correct format, I mean asking the right questions, having the right conversations, communicating in the right way. Because if you don't do that, you also have to understand men are human beings, okay? Let me say it again. Men are human beings. So he is also looking for a partner that he can build with, he can break boundaries with, and somebody that he can bond with. If you're presenting to him as a woman that is dealing with trauma, anxiety, uncertainty, insecurity, he's not going to do any of those things. That's a fact. And a lot of you, the way you are currently dating is out of that part of yourselves, out of anxiety, out of fear, out of concern. Maybe you've gone through a failed marriage, you've gone through a relationship that took all your time, that left you feeling hurt, confused, conflicted. You've gone through anxiety with the men that you've entertained. And the unfortunate thing about that is you are now projecting onto a man that is potentially considering you for serious commitment, all these your issues, and it's going to turn him off. For just to put it very simply, it's just going to turn him off. So what I like to do with clients is, make sure that the questions you're asking are not coming from that part of yourself, because another issue here is you may be asking questions like, oh, why don't you want to take me? Why don't you want to commit to a relationship? Why aren't you showing up for me the way I wanted? Blah, 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 whatever. You can be asking those questions out of anxiety. That means that usually the reason for those questions isn't based on the relationship, it's based on your history. And he's going to know the difference. And the problem with that is if you're in that particular situation, or you can recognize any of the scenarios I just painted, the problem with that is it's not going to matter what question you're asking, because he's going to see it as you presenting anxiety to him, and it's going to be a turnoff. And this applies to all men, regardless of if you're dealing with a good man or a toxic man or a man that, likes you or doesn't like you, because men process information differently than women. So part of the wife in waiting program process is making sure that you are asking questions that are based on a healthy foundation emotionally. So for example, on our bi-weekly coaching calls, which I provide to my wife in waiting clients, I make sure that any questions that they have, we go through the process on the calls together of investigating where is this question coming from, what are your concerns, your anxiety, what's your fear. And outside the coaching calls, you also have access to me on our private community platform where I coach wife in waiting clients on a daily basis as well, because I want to make sure that you're presenting. And when I say presenting, I simply mean that you're packaging, so to speak, the way men perceive you is actually as a healthy woman that is available for serious commitment. In other words, they're seeing you as a wife that you are. But a lot of you are not dating that way, and that fundamentally is the problem, okay? So, do we have any questions from what I said so far? Let me know in the question box. But pretty much you can tell men what you want. You don't have to constantly doubt what you're asking for. You don't have to be in a position where you feel uncomfortable asking questions. It's really just a matter of where is that question coming from. In other words, is it a genuine question, or is it a question based on a prior experience that left you traumatized and fearful? And another consideration is, why is that question important? Okay. And you really have to be ready for whatever response that you get. So when I say a dating safety net that I provide for wife in waiting clients, it's because I don't want you to ask questions, and maybe because you don't like the answer, you keep quiet. You just entertain nonsense. No, you have to be ready to receive whatever you get. So maybe he delays, distracts, or denies, like I'd mentioned before. You have to be ready to walk away if that's the case. You have to be ready to ask again if that's another option. You have to be ready to continue that conversation regardless of his response. And this is why, when you are dating to marry, it's very different from dating out of boredom, dating for fun, dating to see what happens. It's not the same thing. And the previous post I did, if you're watching this live, the previous post I did address that, because some of you find yourself in relationships simply because you didn't say what you wanted. Just because, and I'll give you an example, maybe a guy asks you to be his girlfriend and you know full and well you're not ready for that commitment. But instead of you telling him what you want, which is you want more time to get to know him, you agree and find yourself in a relationship that you don't even know how you got there in the first place, you have no interest in, and you feel like you made the decision prematurely. So it's really important that you learn to express yourself and confidently communicate exactly what you want from a partner and how they can connect with you, because it will encourage the right men to pursue. It will help you filter faster through counterfeits, and it will make it easier for you to stick to the assigned timeline and be in alignment with that timeline to move from single to married. So inside the Wife in Waiting program, that's what I help my clients to do, to make sure that they're in the right relationship within a 90-day timeline that would inevitably lead them to a marriage within a year. And I do this through our coaching calls. So if you become a client of the Wife in Waiting program, you'll receive coaching calls from me as part of our community. You will also receive coaching inside our private community. So apart from the calls, you get private community coaching, and you have access to my dating program, which consists of my curriculum and the templates that I have used to help my clients navigate conversations with men, communicating, flirting with men, talking to men, and expressing their desires. So that's what's available for you inside Wife in Waiting. Now, it's really simple to become a member of our program. You can click the link in my bio and first tab to apply, or you click the pinned link. And if you're the right fit, we'll have a chat and I'll invite you to join Wife in Waiting. We will close for the year in about 6 days or so, basically on Sunday, depending on when you're watching this, Sunday the 22nd of December. Okay, so do we have any questions or anything that I said? If you have a question, drop it in the question box so that I can attend to your questions. I think I have time for a few questions, depending on if you guys want to ask me anything on the live, not after the live has ended. But if you have any questions for me on the live, just drop it in the question box. Okay, so I don't see any questions. Taking it everyone is fine. But in summary, what I'm basically saying is you can tell men what you want. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to. It's really just a question of what you say, how you say it, when you're having those conversations, and making sure that the reasons for asking those questions and telling him what you want are based on your connection with him, not based on a past hurt, trauma, or triggers. Okay, so I'll talk to you guys again soon. If you want to apply for Wife in Waiting, link is in my bio and first tab. If you have any questions about the Wife in Waiting program, feel free to send me a DM. Talk soon. Take care.